on camera in the very near future.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of Parent to Parent. It is me doing this again by myself, which, takes a little time. Where am I? Here we go. I think I should be pulled up pretty soon. Yes, let's try and get... There we go. Here I am. All right. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. If you're on our Facebook page, on our website, this is an important topic that we touched upon a couple of weeks ago, eating disorders and how they are increasing, unfortunately, in adolescents. And then the age is also just so astonishing. It's younger and younger. And what really kind of got to me was when I was doing the story last time, I was speaking with some hospitals and also clinics, and there's a waiting list for people who want to get that advanced care. And this is not just a problem that we're seeing here locally with getting the help, but also nationally. And it's a trend, unfortunately, an upward trend. And the Renfrew Center deals specifically with eating disorders and gives that advanced care. And one of the things I talked about in my story last night, which is on our website, if you weren't able to see it, is that early intervention and parents, or really anybody noticing some of the symptoms and saying something, is really going to benefit not just the child, but also the type of care that they will be getting. So I have with me today Dr. Samantha DeCaro. So let me add you to the stream. There we go. How are you?
Yeah. I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining us in this live stream. So I just want to say you are a clinical psychologist and also director of clinical outreach and education at the Renfrew Center. So, we talk about this, and I have to tell you, when you hear about eating disorders, you normally think of someone that's maybe super skinny and just looks like, they need to eat more. But that's not the case. You can have someone that looks like, not what you may think, and be suffering from an eating disorder. And it goes hidden way more because of the pandemic. So first off, I want to ask you, what do you see and what are you seeing because of the pandemic?
Well, we're seeing a rise absolutely across the board in all levels of care. So the way we treat eating disorders, it depends on what the severity is. For someone where we can catch it early and treat it immediately, they might not need that higher level of care, inpatient hospitalization or residential level. So someone like that might be in outpatient treatment, or maybe they'll be in intensive outpatient treatment. But I think we're seeing a rise across the board because of the pandemic. There are a lot of reasons for this. One of the reasons is increased isolation. What we've always known about eating disorders is that isolation is something that can trigger on an eating disorder, but also maintain it. So eating disorders thrive in isolation. But not only that, there's an increase in social media use. Mm-hmm. This is how people are connecting. There's also food insecurity. People were afraid they weren't even going to be able to get food at the store. Mm-hmm. And we also know from the research that food insecurity has an impact on disordered eating and eating disorders. And then there's loss and anxiety and all of these other mental health conditions that drive eating disorders as well, because eating disorders so rarely travel alone. It's very rare that someone only has an eating disorder. They usually have maybe anxiety, depression, PTSD, multiple disorders that go along with it. And so we're seeing an increase in those mental health issues as well. So it sort of exacerbates the eating disorder when these other issues are heightened. So more anxiety is going to result in more eating disorder symptoms.
Yeah. And it's also very interesting because yesterday when we did the story, well, I talked to her a few days before that, but Shalini, she started having her eating disorder at 11 years old in elementary school. And she didn't even think of it as an eating disorder. She says, because I asked her, like, why were you doing this? And she said, we hit puberty and things are going all over the place. You can't control anything. So one thing I could control is maybe how much I ate, the weight, and it turns into maybe like a competition or a game type thing. And you don't realize how much you are hurting. And I have to be honest, just kind of as a parent, I do get scared because social media plays such a big role in all of this. And, Shalini's now 30, I think like in her 30s. So it's a little different. We didn't really have, I say we, because I'm in my 30s too. We didn't have social media that much back then, but now social media plays such a big role. And when I was talking to a doctor at Texas Children's Hospital, he was saying that it's so normalized. Like you were saying too, things like, oh my God, you look so skinny. You look so good. Or, and it's like, how do you deal with all of that and try to like not process it as a good thing when others around you look at it as a good thing?
Right. I think I'm so glad you brought up social media because now we have this virtual scenario where people are getting comments and likes on their bodies if they're posting images of themselves, or they're even seeing likes and comments on other posts. So it just reinforces these messages about weight and shape and appearance, not to mention all of the editing, the filtering, all of that definitely plays a role. But social media has a very large impact, unfortunately. Back before social media, there were only, if you're in high school or middle school, there's only the people in your class you're really comparing yourself to. But now with the click of a hashtag, you can compare yourself to people globally.
Right.
And there's a lot of comparison, especially for folks with eating disorders. They have a tendency to compare their bodies, their body parts. That's another thing that can fuel that eating disorder on. So yeah, social media is definitely an issue. And in addition to the image-based content, all of the disordered eating, unqualified dietitians, I should say unqualified influencers that aren't dietitians are sharing all of these tips, meal plans, misinformation about, what food is okay to eat, what food is dangerous. And as a teenager or an adolescent, you're going to have a harder time sifting through all of that information and thinking critically about it. Is this, a qualified person sharing this information, or is this someone just trying to make money, trying to get a lot of views on their videos? So there's, we also see what I eat in a day content is all over the internet. So disordered eating is so normalized, and the eating disorder symptoms can get lost in the shuffle. It can get harder and harder to notice because we see so much dieting, so many people cutting out food groups, so many people making these rigid rules about food in the pursuit of health and wellness. But actually, it's these behaviors that are making people sick and triggering on eating disorders, which are deadly. They're the deadliest mental health disorder, second only to opioid use disorder.
Wow.
So these are dangerous disorders, and we really do need to be able to catch them despite all of the noise of diet culture and wellness culture, because it blends in.
It does. And so what do you advise parents to do? Because it's hard to, you get the, I guess, high of looking like something, your image, and we're all our own worst critics. So we always find some flaw. But how do you as a parent try to keep your child from feeling less than what they see?
Great question. I love this question. I get it a lot. And one of the most powerful things parents can do, and this is easier said than done, is to examine their own relationship with food, with their body, and with exercise, because our kids are looking to us for how they should be feeling about their bodies and how they should be feeling about food. They are absorbing all of that. So if you are struggling with your own body image or feeling very anxious and guilty around food, that's a cue that maybe some support is needed so that you can model a healthier relationship for your children. But I also think it can be really important for parents to really make a conscious effort to shift the focus away from appearance, from the body, and focus more on attributes that have nothing to do with appearance. Frequently reminding your kids the things you love about them, their kindness, their creativity, their sense of humor. Though our kids need those reminders because they're still developing their identity. They're not quite sure yet who they are. And we need to be reinforcing and helping them see the qualities about them that have nothing to do with appearance and weight and body size. And in addition to that, I think shifting the focus away from health as far as linking body size and health, because we know that weight is actually not a reliable indicator of health or wellness. So it can be tricky because I think oftentimes there is such a focus on health in this culture and such a connection between weight and health that ends up being the focus. And really, there are so many better ways to measure physical health and mental health. Let's shift a little bit more towards those things, especially mental health. Like, let's talk about how to reduce stress, how to reduce anxiety, how to get moving in a joyful way rather than punishing ourselves with exercise. So there's different things I think that parents can do that can be really powerful. But modeling really a healthy relationship with food, movement, and your body is one of the most powerful things you could do for your kids.
Yeah, definitely. And that's so big because I think that as parents, we get wrapped up in what we're trying to do as well. I mean, I can personally, I have 2 kids, so I was pregnant twice. And just because of the nature of the business I'm in, I'm on TV all the time. And I did feel this immense pressure to be able to fit back into my dresses again, because, I have 3 months worth of time and that's what I'm going to do. And I mean, the first time when I had my son, I definitely felt that pressure. But the second go around, I was like, you know what? I just housed a human and gave birth to a human.
It's amazing. Our bodies are amazing. They can do amazing things.
It's okay. And,
yeah.
I have also been privy to what some of these in the pageant world, and plastic surgery and all of that. There are actually machines that people pay thousands of dollars to have on them to make the abs, to get the V cut, to do all of those things. So you're over here watching the Victoria's Secret, maybe fashion show, not a knock on Victoria's Secret. I'm just saying this is one fashion show. And you're thinking, wow, how in the world did they do that? It's a diet. But they actually have machines that are creating that muscle, and they're paying a lot of money to do that. So my point of bringing this up is it's like filters. It's like what you're seeing is not real life on Instagram and social media.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really want to use my platform to, I think, not just echo that, but unfortunately, and Dr. DeCara, you probably feel the same way. It's only going to get worse because now you're just seeing what kind of social media, I guess, imprint you have of yourself. So I know I'm talking a lot and I should be talking.
No, thank you for saying all that and for sharing your personal experience. Yeah. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I do think it likely will get worse if it keeps going on this trajectory, because I don't think social media is going anywhere. Right. I think if anything, it will probably get bigger. Our virtual spaces will get bigger and we'll rely on them even more. And we need to always be talking about this and combating this, that these images that we're seeing aren't real. Even folks like folks in the modeling industry and actresses, those body types often are not attainable or realistic. There's like entire teams and machines and things
Yes.
that are making people look a certain way.
Yes.
And we can really lose sight of that pretty easily when we're consuming all of this all the time. And it's so important I talk a lot about media literacy, about being able to critically analyze and critically consume what we're seeing, because it can get very tricky and it can really blur the lines between reality and fantasy.
Right.
And so we need more realistic representation. We need more body types represented across the board in the media. We need diversity. We need all of these things so that what we're seeing virtually matches actually what the world looks like.
Right.
And we're not tricked into thinking that, we need to somehow pursue this unattainable, unrealistic ideal that is ultimately making people very sick mentally and physically.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, and I'm going to bring up, I have video of these quizzes that anybody can take. And, you go a step further and you kind of ask yourself, why am I doing this? Because I want to look a certain way. But if you do look that way, are you going to be happy? Like, is that going to be enough? It's kind of like the thing where, do you want to be successful? You're going to be at the top, leave everybody down. You're going to be at the top by yourself. It's kind of like the same thing. So I've just talked to some friends about it. And this is what because I did say I was concerned about them. And that's kind of like what I wanted to get into as well. As a parent, if you see these things, these signs, them not eating as much, whatever, what's the best way to talk to them about it? Especially teenagers. Teenagers don't want to talk to their parents in general.
Yes. So it is really important to not ignore these signs if you're seeing them. As I said earlier, ideally, we want to catch eating disorders as early as possible, and we want to treat them aggressively as early as possible. That's really the best prognosis. So familiarize yourself with the signs. That's one of the most important things. There's lots of great resources out there. The National Eating Disorders Association, renfrewcenter.com. We have all kinds of blogs and articles and resources so that people can educate themselves about what the signs are. And actually, they're not always so obvious. Unfortunately, in movies and the media, the image of someone who has an eating disorder is usually an emaciated, thin, young white girl. And eating disorders come in all shapes and sizes. We can't tell what kind of eating disorder someone has by looking at them. And we can't tell the severity of the eating disorder by looking at them. So if we rely on just looks alone, that can be really dangerous because we can really miss people who are really, really struggling. So I think the instinct a lot of times with eating disorders is that parents want to focus on weight or food and say, you are not looking good, you're not eating, I'm worried about you. And I really encourage parents to focus more on what they're seeing emotionally, socially. How is their child being impacted in school, in their relationships? Are they isolating? Do they seem depressed? Do they seem really anxious? And to focus on that piece. You don't seem like yourself lately. You seem so anxious, especially around mealtime. You're not going out with your friends anymore. You're not going out to restaurants. I'm concerned because you doesn't seem like you're really living your life in the way that you used to, or the way that, you deserve to.
Mm-hmm.
And so to shift the focus, which can be hard, because I just want to validate, I understand the instinct is to go right for weight and appearance, but I do believe it's actually more effective to focus on what's happening across these other domains, because probably your teen knows that they're suffering. Maybe they are, they are not, they don't think, a lot of times with eating disorders, there's denial and minimization. So if you focus on the body, that denial is going to get in the way. They're going to say, I'm fine. I actually think I need to lose more weight. You're not going to have success with that. Eating disorders are not logical disorders, so we can't fight them with logic. We need to go for the emotions. Talk about what you're seeing. socially, emotionally, mentally. And I think you could break through that way.
And one more thing I wanted to bring up before I bring up the website. When I spoke with the doctor at Texas Children's Hospital, he was saying fat jokes, which we've all heard them within our family or friends, that they're never okay. Never. Or anything to do about your weight, how even like parents might have a nickname for somebody that may allude to a body image type. Can you explain how crucial it is not to ever joke, even though you're not trying to hurt someone's feelings about something like this?
Absolutely. I mean, at the root of eating disorders, we have diet culture, we have fat phobia, which manifest as fat jokes. We have this culture that we live in that is really the fuel for this pathology. And if we allow it in our homes and we allow it, with the people that we surround ourselves with, just remember that your children are listening. And if they are struggling with disordered eating, or they perhaps even have a budding eating disorder, these are the things they will latch onto and they will replay in their head over and over and over again. And the meaning that they're creating is that one body type is better than the other, and that they are in danger of being criticized and judged if their body doesn't look a certain way. And so they end up feeling very unsafe in their own bodies. And so we need to make an effort all of the time to stop body shaming, shift the focus away from the body and more on meaningful traits and characteristics, values, things that actually truly matter, and less on superficial qualities. Those with eating disorders are tortured by these thoughts, and these comments will stick in their head for years to come. I cannot tell you how many clients I've worked with where they can remember something that was said 10, 15 years ago that is still playing in their head and is part of their eating disorder. So I can't stress it enough. Even if you're making fun of someone on TV or body shaming someone, that person on the TV is not going to hear you, but your kid is going to hear you and they're going to remember it.
Yeah. I just want to, Rachel, thank you so much for commenting. She says that my child asked if it's healthy. He's picky. So I say yes, no matter what it is. So just so he eats. And then she said he's 5 and asked if it's healthy and he will get fat. He's underweight for his age and height. I think, Rachel, the best thing to do is what Dr. DeCaro has been saying, which is just being supportive and talking about everything but appearance and all of that, right?
Yes, I really thank you so much, Rachel, for this comment. And I really love your approach of not falling in this trap of labeling food as good or bad. And that includes labeling food as healthy or unhealthy, because the moment we start dividing up food is the moment we start having a disordered relationship with it. Because when we label something as unhealthy or forbidden or unsafe in some way, those are the very foods that we end up craving and increases our risk of binge eating and overeating. So what we teach in eating disorder treatment, and this applies across the board to anyone who's struggling with their relationship with food, is that let's not label food as good or bad. All food can fit into a lifestyle. So we want to be teaching our kids this at a very young age, that it's okay to eat things that you enjoy. It's okay to eat things for culture, celebration, even comfort. All of these things are okay. Food is more than just fuel. So as you can see, Rachel's child is already internalizing some of these messages about this fear of getting fat. And the reality is that we can be healthy at a variety of different shapes and sizes. There are many shapes and sizes that exist in the world, and we don't have to focus on that. There are other ways to focus. I mean, there's other ways to talk about health, and we can take weight out of it.
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to show. Let me see here. Can you hear me? I think you guys can. Okay, so here's video of the website, and it's great. And there's all these resources. They don't have a location here in Texas, but you can access this obviously anywhere. And I think the big thing that I would encourage people to do is under resources and for you, you can go down to the food quiz, the body quiz, the emotion quiz. And really, it's just such a great way to kind of, like you were saying, Dr. DeCaro, just the first step in starting that conversation that might be a good thing or might be something that you need help with.
Exactly. The quiz is a nice way to take a look at your relationship with food. A lot of these questions will illuminate maybe some signs of disordered eating or an eating disorder, so it can shed some light on whether or not someone is struggling. So it is a great starting point, and I really encourage everyone, do it with your kids, do it
Yeah.
together, talk about it.
Yeah. It's very
And
easy. And it's actually like revealing because you're like, whoa, well, I didn't, because I'm over here like, whoa, I'm going to have a piece of cake. It's going to be the worst thing ever, but it's not even a big deal, like.
Well, right, exactly. Yeah. It's disordered eating, and many symptoms of eating disorders they blend in with our culture, and this is why it can be there. It can be missed because it's normalized, and even in some cases praised. Yeah. Where people say things like, "Oh, you're so disciplined. I wish I could be more like you." And the reality is, when we really break down these behaviors, these are the same exact behaviors we see with eating disorders.
Right, right. Well, this was only going to be, 20 minutes of a chat, but we chatted a little bit longer. I think it was great information. Dr. DeCaro, thank you so much for your time, and thank all of you for joining us. This is a topic that affects so many people. And so I might do a story again a little bit later on with parent to parent as well. But if you have any questions or anything, please do write in the comments. And thank you again for being on our Facebook website and on our YouTube channel. This will be linked over there as well. So until next time, I'll see you later.